It was meant to happen. Nancy always said she'd die before she was 21.
What would you like to happen now over the next, say, year or two?
I'd like to have fun.
What sort of fun?
Any kind of fun, just fun. That's my object in life.
The Sex Pistols stand as one of the most iconic, controversial, and culturally significant bands in rock history. Despite their brief, turbulent existence, their explosive music and rebellious spirit permanently altered the music landscape. Emerging in 1975 from the gritty streets of London, the Sex Pistols were pioneers of the punk rock movement, a sound and ideology that rejected the excesses of 1970s rock and embodied anger, disillusionment, and rebellion. The band's successes, failures, and their dramatic breakup all played key roles in cementing their legacy, while the tragic fate of Sid Vicious became a cautionary tale for rock stardom. To this day, the Sex Pistols remain symbols of a cultural revolution. So why did they break up? Let's have a look.
And so I take some really serious sense of responsibility in Sid's demise because of that. All right? I miss my friends.
The Sex Pistols were born at the crossroads of youth frustration and economic strife in mid-70s Britain. The country was in turmoil, marked by unemployment, labor strikes, and a bleak future for working-class youth. Against this backdrop, punk rock emerged as a raw, unfiltered expression of rage and discontent. The Sex Pistols were formed by guitarist Steve Jones, drummer Paul Cook, bassist Glenn Matlock, and frontman John Lydon, better known by his stage name Johnny Rotten. Their manager, the provocative and shrewd Malcolm McLaren, played a vital role in shaping the band's image, fostering their reputation as anarchic troublemakers. From the onset, the Sex Pistols sought to challenge convention. Their debut single, Anarchy in the UK, released in 1976, was a bold declaration of intent. The song's snarling vocals and aggressive energy delivered a scathing critique of the British establishment. It was a shock to the music industry and became an anthem for the disillusioned. The track's provocative lyrics and Rotten's sneering delivery captured the anger of a generation, while Steve Jones's distorted guitar riffs provided a sonic assault unlike anything that had come before. In 1977, the Sex Pistols courted even greater controversy with God Save the Queen. The single, released during Queen Elizabeth II's Silver Jubilee, derided the monarchy and questioned the state of Britain. Lyrics such as God Save the Queen, the fascist regime, sparked outrage, with the song banned by mainstream radio and retailers. Despite, or perhaps because of, the controversy, the single soared to number 2 on the UK charts, an extraordinary feat given its lack of airplay. The accompanying publicity solidified the Sex Pistols as cultural pariahs and icons of punk defiance. Their only studio album, Mind the Bollocks, Here's the Sex Pistols, released in 1977, remains a cornerstone of punk music. Tracks like Holidays in the Sun, Pretty Vacant, and Bodies showcase the band's blistering sound and lyrical rebellion. The album was divisive, with critics split between hailing it as a revolutionary masterpiece or condemning it as vulgar noise. Yet its influence cannot be overstated. It was a middle finger to the bloated, self-indulgent rock of the time and inspired legions of bands to pick up instruments and start their own musical revolutions. Despite their meteoric rise and cultural impact, the Sex Pistols' career was riddled with chaos and controversy. Their success was not measured by longevity or chart dominance, but by their ability to shake the establishment and redefine the music industry. They became global symbols of anti-establishment sentiment, giving voice to a disenchanted generation. However, their anarchic approach often led to significant failures. Their public persona and behavior, often fueled by drugs, alcohol, and antagonistic antics, led to frequent bans and backlash. Infamous incidents, such as the profanity-laden Bill Grundy TV interview in 1976, cemented their notoriety but damaged their prospects. Venues refused to book them, radio stations blacklisted their music, and the mainstream media vilified them as threats to moral decency. And internal conflicts within the band began to surface, particularly as Malcolm McLaren's manipulative management style pitted band members against one another. Glenn Matlock, the original bassist and a key songwriting force behind many of the band's early hits, was ousted in 1977. He was replaced by Sid Vicious, real name John Simon Ritchie, a figure who embodied punk's destructive excesses but lacked musical ability. Sid's recruitment was a decision driven more by image than talent, a move that further destabilized the band. The Sex Pistols' 1978 U.S. tour marked the beginning of the end. The band's chaotic dynamic, coupled with McLaren's insistence on booking them in hostile southern states where their antics were guaranteed to incite fury, turned the tour into a disaster. Concerts often descended into violence, and the band members' relationships deteriorated rapidly. Sid Vicious's worsening heroin addiction exacerbated the band's problems. Unable to play bass and increasingly erratic, Sid became a liability. Meanwhile, Johnny Rotten grew disillusioned with McLaren's management and the direction of the band. Rotten felt that the Sex Pistols had become a spectacle rather than a musical entity. The tensions continued when they performed in San Francisco in January 1978, which was to be their final show. The performance was marred by a sense of fatigue and frustration. At the end of the concert, Johnny Rotten famously taunted the audience, saying, quote, "Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?" This bitter remark encapsulated the disillusionment with the band, McLaren, and the music industry. It was clear the Sex Pistols had reached their breaking point. Following the show, the band effectively disbanded. Johnny Rotten quit, leaving McLaren to scramble to keep the brand alive. McLaren attempted to promote Sid Vicious as a solo star, while other band members pursued separate projects. However, the Sex Pistols as a unified group were finished. The post-breakup saga of Sid Vicious remains one of rock history's most tragic stories. Sid, who had already been struggling with heroin addiction, spiraled further into self-destruction. In October 1978, he was accused of murdering his girlfriend, Nancy Spungen, in New York's Chelsea Hotel. Nancy was found dead from a stab wound, and Sid was arrested as the prime suspect. While awaiting trial, Sid was released on bail but was re-arrested for assault. On February 2, 1979, Sid Vicious died of a heroin overdose at age 21. His death solidified him as a punk icon, a figure symbolic of both the allure and the dangers of rock and roll excess. Many debate whether Sid truly killed Nancy, with theories suggesting accidental death, suicide pacts, or involvement by other individuals. Regardless, their doomed relationship and his untimely death remain central to the Sex Pistols' legacy, representing punk rock's darker side. Despite their implosion, the Sex Pistols' legacy is unparalleled. In just a few years, they fundamentally reshaped popular music and culture. Punk rock, as a genre and a movement, owes much of its identity to the Sex Pistols. They inspired countless punk and post-punk bands, from The Clash and the Ramones to Nirvana and Green Day. The band's DIY ethos, rejecting corporate music standards and encouraging individuality, empowered a generation to make music on their own terms. Their fashion, characterized by ripped clothes, safety pins, and aggressive styling, influenced not just music, but also the broader fashion world. Vivienne Westwood, who co-ran a boutique with Malcolm McLaren, played a pivotal role in creating the punk aesthetic that the Sex Pistols made famous. Even their failures contributed to their legacy. Their confrontational approach and refusal to conform ensured their place in rock history. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think the Sex Pistols are still appreciated by newer music fans? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section below.